We are going to get into it because I know we got Chris Rose coming up in a little bit. Spadoni brought something up at the break, and I want to bring it to air because I find it to be a very passionate, fun sports conversation. Spadoni, you lay it out.
Baseball?
You lay it out, and then we will discuss it.
Well, it just going from last break, you just chimed in that Mike Trout, we can't compare him to Mickey Mantle and stuff like that. I was like, well, he's on the trajectory and he's still on that path. I think you can compare him to those guys because I believe he'll go down as the greatest player of his generation. Then you compare him to Ken Griffey and stuff like that. I was like, okay, well, like neither of those guys had playoff success, so it's not really like comparing that part, but the longevity factor is going to be a thing. But I believe if you're comparing the greats to the greats, you just go by their generation. And was Griffey the best player of his generation, or was that Barry Bonds?
Well, here's what I would say.
Was it Alex Rodriguez?
It was an argument.
It
was an argument.
Because he only won one MVP. Mike Trout has won 3 already.
The MVP
He's 31.
Isn't the only thing. Like, if I just look at their
But it matters. I'm saying he is going to go down as the greatest player of his generation. Would you disagree with that, Mike Trout? Is he not the best player this last decade?
Let's ask Chris Rose, our buddy from John Boy Media, BattleBots, NFL Network, formerly of MLB Network and Intentional Talk. I actually miss him on Intentional Talk. Him and Kevin Millard has something special. Chris, I wonder about that, man. You and Kevin Millard, man, I miss you on MLB Network. But let's just start right there. And thank you for joining us. Good morning to you. Baseball's heating up, no doubt about it. A lot to get to here. But Trout or Griffey? Griffey or Trout?
I mean, I'm looking at their first 13 years because that's what Trout's in, and Griffey's got him in a lot of stats.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, I'd have to look and see exactly when Griffey started getting injured because that's when it went downhill pretty quickly. After a decade or so, he got traded to Cincinnati, and he still put up some decent numbers, but he wasn't close to the player that he was, obviously, in Seattle when he was tracking everything down. The thing about Griffey is that he's got Trout defensively, so if you're going to factor that into it,
yeah,
you need to when you're talking about the complete player. But Mike Trout's numbers are, I just pulled him up right now. He's going to have a legit shot at 500 homers. He's going to have a chance to have over a 300 career average. He's probably not going to get back to over 1,000, one-dot OPS. He's at 994, which is utterly insane.
Wow.
And his on-base percentage is over 400. It's pretty hard to argue against Trout because I still think that, listen, this hamate bone is a weird thing. That happens to guys all the time. That's not saying that Trout's injury-prone because he swung and broke his hamate bone, for instance, right? That's not like pulling a hamstring and being out a month, pulling an oblique and being out 8 weeks. This is all sort of weird stuff. He's slid into a base and broke a finger a couple of years ago. So I still think he's going to be able to add to this. And, I'm fortunate that we've been able to watch him do his thing. I just wish he'd have more than 3 playoff games on his resume.
No doubt. I'm looking at Griffey's numbers. When he was 23 years old, he had 45 home runs and 109 RBI. He went 45-40, played in 72 games in 95. Obviously, the strike short, or when the players came back to baseball, but 17 home runs that year. Then he hit 49, 56, 56, 48, and 40 in his first year with Cincinnati. Then the injury started to derail him. But then at the age of 35, he actually hit 35 home runs and drove in 92 runs. So it's a fun argument. I personally would take Griffey because of what you just said, Chris. Defensively, I think he was a better player than Mike Trout in center field.
And what he meant to the sport at that time.
Yeah, he changed the game. And, he was a 5-tool player, no doubt about that. If he wanted to, he could have been a 30-30 guy. Trout, it's unfortunate with Trout because the Angels finally felt like they were turning a corner. Then Trout gets hurt. Rendon gets hurt again for like the 15th time in his Angels tenure. And then Shohei goes down with the blister. Now he's not going to miss a ton of time. But it felt like the Angels starting to turn the corner, get some momentum, becoming buyers. And now Trout's out 4 to 8 weeks. What a tough blow for the Angels, not only for this season, but maybe in their prospects for keeping Shohei Otani.
Yeah, that's now you get to the discussion of, okay, how much does this change the trade trajectory for Otani? And some people say you can't trade him because then you give him a taste of what another organization, and probably a really good organization, feels like, right? The whole idea is that Otani came over here. He wanted to play with Mike Trout. He wanted to kind of stay out of the limelight. Well, now his personality has changed in the 6 years that he's been over in the United States. I don't know how much you watched of the World Baseball Classic, but he was the show. And it didn't matter whether it was happening in series in Japan or down in Miami. That's who people wanted to see. That's who people gravitated toward. That's who all the media covered. And he was really comfortable with it. So I think, he's no longer this shy kid in his early 20s. He's a man that's approaching 30. He just turned 29 over the past week. And he's going to have every opportunity to sign wherever he wants. And I think a lot of that has to deal with him being comfortable in his own skin, But it's not like, oh, my God, America, I want to sit somewhere where somebody else can be the star, like Mike Trout. Like, he knows he's the dude now. Do the Angels want to give him an opportunity to kind of feel comfortable somewhere else before this free agency process happens? I'm not so sure about that.
I'm looking at this first half of the season. It's about to conclude over the weekend. I just feel like the big takeaway is these rules and the athleticism that has been re-injected back into the game. I think it's saved the sport. I mean, I've always loved baseball. I've gone along with the changing of the analytics and the way the game is played, but it feels like to me we're getting a renaissance of athleticism and young players exploding all across the league. It's been a great first half.
It has been, and the nice thing is you got a ton of teams that are in this thing, and people watch what the Phillies and the Padres did in particular last year as the 5 and 6 seeds of, the postseason, said all we have to do is just get in, and maybe we can go on some sort of magical run. The rules have opened up the game. It's opened it up defensively. It's opened it up offensively. I didn't love the whole idea of pitchers not being able to throw over more than 3 times without being penalized. But I have to admit, I do enjoy watching guys run. Like, I love the idea of the stolen base being back in this sport. I think it's great. I mean, Ronald Acuna has just become Ricky Henderson again with even more power. And that's a great thing for a guy who grew up watching Ricky's entire career. I remember in the early 80s, if he'd walked to lead off a game, you're like, oh, my God, the guy's going to have a triple in about 3 seconds. And sure enough, he'd steal second, he'd steal third. And it's very much like what Acuna is doing on a team that is the best in the league by a wide margin, in my opinion. And so I love watching it. It's been great.
Chris Rose here on the Morning Rush on 95.7 The Game, of course, the John Boy Media NFL Network. Chris Rose has done it for a long, long time. He's also Cleveland's finest. But you brought up the Padres and Phillies from last season with these extra wild card spots. And the Phillies, of course, going to the World Series and taking the Astros to 6. Very good World Series. But they went on a run. The Padres go on a run. Can the Giants do the same thing this season? Or do they need to be very aggressive at the deadline? Can the Giants be last year's Philadelphia Phillies, Chris?
Well, listen, I didn't pay much attention to the Giants at the beginning of the year. I thought it was going to be Dodgers, Padres in this division by a wide margin. And then, the Giants might be a third-place team, but at best, maybe they're a little bit better than last year's 500 squad. Mid-80s in the wins. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, it sure looks like the Giants are putting up a lot of runs for the Giants. And then I started, looking at the numbers and everything, and this is like the best Giants lineup in a while. I mean, wouldn't you guys agree?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the nice thing is they've got some really nice contributions from young guys. Like all the free agent signings that they made, whether it was Stripling or Minaya or Haniger, bringing all those guys, they've either been hurt or not as effective as they thought they'd be. So it's really kind of coming from some unexpected areas. It's nice to see late night Lamont kind of rediscover whatever magic he had 2 years ago and even take that a step further. You've got a young catcher who is super exciting on both sides of the ball, and it's not named Joey Bart. I think it's been a great story, and the Diamondbacks have slipped now, and they have let the Dodgers and Giants climb back in this thing. And by the way, the Padres, if they have a great weekend against the Mets, that team's got enough talent. I don't know if they have enough locker room togetherness to get it going, but they could be out there as well. So, yeah, the Giants are going to do they have to revamp things? No, but they can't run 3 starters out there and then 2 bullpen games consistently in the second half. And that's what they pretty much had to do the last 5 or 6 weeks. They can't do that.
No, they can't. But I'm looking at someone like Camilo Doval, and
yeah.
He's just been spectacular and
unreal.
We know how great starting pitching is and how valuable that is, whether we're talking about in the open market or just how teams covet it as we approach the deadline. What's more important for the Giants, that Logan Webb has emerged, even though the overall record isn't great, or that Camilo Doval has emerged? What's the more impressive thing to you?
Well, I mean, you need a guy that every 5 days you can count on to give you 7 innings and to keep your team in a game. And so Logan Webb's done that remarkably well. I thought it was a really, really smart contract extension at the beginning of the season with the Giants. And I thought it was great for Logan, too. But to have a guy like Doval who throws 103 and, he was my pick for Rookie of the Year. I think, was it last year he was officially a rookie? Wasn't it last year?
Yes.
Last year.
Yes.
Yeah. So I picked him to be Rookie of the Year, and that didn't exactly work out. But he is just 100% nastiness when he's out there. He's probably the least talked about reliever that is just flat out dominant. And part of that is because of, where he plays. People don't see him as much late night and whatnot, but they're going to see him Tuesday in Seattle, and Joe Davis and John Smoltz are going to talk him up, and he's going to strike out 2 of the 3 guys he faces, and then everybody will be like, damn, man, when did he get so nasty?
Right.
I'll be like, just watch a few late night games. He's pretty good.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know what, Chris? I believe he has a chance to be the best closer in San Francisco Giants history. Like, Rob Nin was here, over 200 saves. Of course, Rod Beck and Brian Wilson. But Doval stuff is that nasty. I'm in love with him. I think the guy has talent to be the best we've ever seen here in the Bay Area. Let me ask you about Tim Anderson, because you're out there in AL Central country. You cover your Guardians, and they're rolling there in the AL Central, Jose Ramirez. But Tim Anderson, does he have anything left? Shasky brought him up yesterday saying maybe the Giants could go buy low on him. I didn't realize Tim Anderson hit 6 home runs last year, and he has 0 this season. What the heck is going on with him? Is he washed, or does he just need a change of scenery?
So here's the part of the game that people don't talk about, and I watch everything because it's our job to cover it nationally. But I also watch the White Sox a lot because one of my co-hosts, Lucas Giolito, on the Rose rotation, obviously pitches for him every 5 days. They are a terrible defensive team, and unfortunately, Tim Anderson has been a big part of that. When I'm sorry, I want a guy that can catch the ball at shortstop, make every basic play. And something has happened to his defense over the last couple of years, and I can't quite figure it out, but it has not been good on any level, whether it's metrics or just when passing the eye test. So at least you could put up with it when he was hitting 300 and, had an OPS either in the high 7s or the low to mid 8s, like it was a couple of years ago. I'm just not sure that that's where I would go fishing right now. I don't see it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't been healthy this year, and he hasn't been good. I mean, his numbers are atrocious. A 541 OPS.
Yeah, it's bad.
That's 150 points below league average.
Huh.
And I don't know I have no idea what's happened to his game. It's really a mystery because he was a damn good ball player.
No doubt. Look, before we get you out of here, Chris, we always appreciate the time. Does the All-Star game still do something for you? You brought it up with Camilo Doval Tuesday in Seattle. Home Run Derby is going to happen on Monday. Does the All-Star weekend do something for you in Major League Baseball? Does it still get your juices flowing?
Well, so the week does, okay? A couple of things. The Home Run Derby is far and away the best of all the 4 major sporting events. I could maybe go with the 3-point shooting contest as a comparison. Those are the 2. Like, the dunk contest stinks.
Yep.
The NHL skills contest is fine. It's fine. Obviously, the NFL, I like watching dodgeball. It's fun, whatever, but it's a little far removed from the actual sport of what we're playing.
Right.
So Home Run Derby has become the event. It is infinitely better than the game on Tuesday. I'm like a lot of people. I want to see them go back to wearing their regular jerseys. I don't know why we don't do that.
Me too.
I think it's time that we change the every team has to be represented rule. I hate the fact that the league is like appointing guys like Pete Alonso and Julio Rodriguez, whom I really like watching. I really love watching both those guys. Neither one of them are all-stars this year.
Right.
They took some deserving spots of people who, like, most fans aren't going to care that Alex Verdugo, didn't get in, or Leotis out of Texas didn't get in. But those people worked hard to have a first half that were represented at the All-Star game, and they got jobbed by the league because they wanted more marketable players in it. Whatever, fine. Just tell us the truth here, people. So long-winded answer is the game is meh. The home run derby is awesome.
No doubt. That's Chris Rose, everybody. John Boy Media does a great job. BattleBots NFL Network, the Chris Rose Rotation Podcast, and, of course, Cleveland's finest. Chris, we always appreciate the time that you give us
Chris.
here. We always love talking baseball with you. And we'll talk some football, too, because training camp's right around the corner.
I was just going to say, guys, I mean, we get, a couple weeks, and then we're buckling up for this thing. And the Browns and Niners playing the first 6 weeks of the season.
I was thinking about going to that game. I'm not going to lie to you.
Seriously?
But I listen, the road slate's not great.
called you
Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Minnesota.
called
But
you
something intrigues me about Cleveland. I don't know why. I kind of want to sit in the dog pound, but who knows?
Okay. All right, well, hold on here. I know we probably got to get the break, and your producer's going nuts, but that's fine.
He is.
You invited me on the show, so I'm here.
Exactly. Screw our producer right now.
Yes, you know what? Go have fun in Cleveland. It is a fun place to watch a ball game. I'm terrified of that game. I'm terrified of our first 6 weeks of the season. But I would root silently. We don't always treat the opposing team's fans great. I'm not happy about that. I'm a little embarrassed.
Well, it couldn't be worse than Philly.
It can't be. We were in Philly for the NFC Championship game.
Oh yeah, no, then you're fine.
It was like running from the White Walkers. I mean, it was rough.
You'll be if you survive that one, then you're going to be good to go.
All right, Chris. I'll let you know if you make that happen. All right, Chris. Take care, man. Chris Rose here on the Morning Rush on 85.7 The Game. Always a fun time with Chris, man. Always fun. Always fun.